The smell of burnt garlic hit me the moment I stepped inside, sharp enough to sting my nose. In this house, that meant one of two things. Either Bree was cooking for company, or she was plotting my funeral. Judging by the laughter rolling out from the dining room, I guessed it was the first one. Still, I didn't rule out the second. "Des, perfect timing," she called, her voice sweet in that fake honey-dipped way she used when there were witnesses. I loosened my tie, wiped drywall dust off my sleeve, and headed toward the noise. Parish Electric had us doing 12-hour shifts out on the new mall site, and my body felt like it was welded together. I just wanted a beer and peace, but peace wasn't on the menu. Candles everywhere, gold napkins, our best plates, the ones she'd said were just for show. 6 people sat around the table, all smiling with the kind of politeness that comes from too much wine and not enough honesty. "Everyone, you remember my husband, Desmond?" Bree announced, gesturing toward me like she was showing off a prize catch. "The man who pays the bills?" Laughter broke out, sharp and ugly. I stood there, still holding my keys, watching them laugh at me like if I was background noise in my own life. "That's funny," I said, voice flat. "What exactly's the joke?" The room went quiet, just the sound of a fork hitting a plate. Bree's smile twitched. "Des, don't be so serious, it's just humour." "Right," I nodded. "Law's a joke. 'Cause I break my back 60 hours a week so you can drink wine by candlelight. Hilarious." "Des, nah." I cut her off. "I get it. You're all having a good time. Don't let me stop the show." I turned and walked out before my mouth said something my soul couldn't take back. Out on the porch, the air was cold and quiet. I sat in my truck, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles ached. My phone buzzed. "Bree, you embarrassed me in front of my friends. We need to talk." I stared at the text, then deleted it. Not tonight. I started the engine and drove toward the office. At least the machines respected me there. The Parish Electric lot was mostly empty except for one car, Raheem's silver Lexus. My brother liked to stay late, or pretend he did. Inside, the lights were still on. He was at the conference table, papers everywhere, sleeves rolled up, acting like the boss. "Des?" He looked up, surprised. "Thought you had that dinner thing." "Had," I said. "It's over." He studied me a second, then sighed. "She say something slick again?" "Something like that." Raheem leaned back. "Man, you gotta let that slide. Bree just likes attention. You know that." "Yeah," I said quietly. "I know." I looked around the office. Our office. Every tool, every bolt, every wall built by our hands. And suddenly the silence felt off. Something under it buzzed wrong. When I walked back outside, the parking lot was darker than before. Across the street, under a street lamp, sat a black SUV I didn't recognize. Windows tinted deep. Engine running low. As I watched, the passenger door opened. Bree stepped out, wearing her silk robe and a nervous smile. A tall man got out from the driver's side, gym body, sleeveless shirt, and leaned down to kiss her. I froze, not rage, not heartbreak, just a hollow click, like a breaker switching off. She looked around, then went back inside. He drove away. I sat there in the truck, watching the taillights fade, and realized something simple and awful. The joke wasn't funny anymore. The house was quiet when I got back. Too quiet. The kind that makes the walls sound like they're listening. The smell of garlic had gone cold, mixed now with that faint perfume Bree sprays before bed, something floral and expensive. Every light downstairs was off except one, the kitchen, soft and gold through the crack of the door. I stepped in slow. The dishes were stacked in the sink, wine stains still bleeding through napkins. On the counter sat her phone charger, her water bottle, and the little brass key she always kept clipped to her robe belt. The one for her office. That office used to be our guest room until she turned it into a studio. Ring lights, mirrors, product boxes, all that influencer life mess. She'd started locking it a few months back, said she needed privacy for brand work. I didn't question it then. Now, standing in the kitchen with that key winking at me, I felt something heavy in my chest. Not jealousy, not even heartbreak, just that slow, surgical kind of anger, the kind that's more math than flame. I picked up the key, flipped it once in my palm and walked down the hall. The lock gave up easy. One clean twist, one soft click. Inside, the air smelled like perfume, paper, and the faint ozone from too many electronics running too long. Her laptop was still open on the desk, glowing blue in the dark. For a second, I hesitated. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe I didn't need to see. But curiosity's a disease that spreads fast once it gets under your skin. The screen showed her Instagram page. Perfect lighting, perfect smile, all filters and fake laughter. But the tabs at the top told the truth. Open messages, open docs, open notes. She hadn't logged out of anything. I clicked the messages first. At first it was harmless, brands, sponsors, collabs. Then I saw one name repeat too often, Dante. Short, flirty, lowercase replies. You looked amazing today, missed that laugh. Don't stress the old man, he'll never catch on. The old man. I scrolled further. A photo. Her hand on his wrist at the gym, half cropped, captioned, Progress. The room felt smaller. But the deeper I went, the clearer it got. These weren't just gym chats, they were making plans, meeting times, money talk, small details about the transition. I didn't know what that meant yet, but I knew it wasn't fitness. Then I hit another name, one that didn't belong there. Raheem. For a second I thought it was just business stuff. Maybe invoices, company scheduling. But no, these messages had tone, they had rhythm. Bree talked to him like she used to talk to me before everything got dull around the edges. You think he suspects anything, she'd written? We have to be careful, he's smarter than you think. And then Raheem's reply. I just stared at it. The line pulsed in front of me, small black text that hit harder than a fist. He's starting to ask questions. Don't worry, I'll handle him. No name, no emoji, no punctuation, just cold confidence. For a long time I didn't move, didn't blink. I sat there with that glow on my face, watching the cursor blink beside their last sentence like it was daring me to reply. All the little things I'd brushed off over the past few months started clicking together. Missed calls, closed doors, Raheem's sudden extra hours at the office, Bree's new obsession with content strategy. Each one was a puzzle piece I'd been too tired to fit together. Now the picture was clear enough to burn. I closed the laptop slow, slid the key back into my pocket, and stood in the dark for a while, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and my own pulse pounding under it. By the time I walked out, I wasn't angry anymore. Anger's loud, this was quiet, this was planning. And as the kitchen light flickered once before I turned it off, I told myself something that felt both true and dangerous. They thought they could handle me. Let's see how that goes. The office was dead quiet when I walked in, just to hear the hum of the vending machine and the low buzz of the fluorescent lights. That kind of silence that only shows up after a long day of lies. The air smelled like dust and burnt coffee. Parish Electric's logo gleamed on the glass door like it still meant something solid, something honest. Raheem's car was out front again, that silver Lexus sitting cocky under the streetlight. Inside, he was right where I expected him, slouched at the drafting table, screens lit up, acting busy, papers everywhere, calculator blinking. He looked up and tried that easy smile he uses when he's hiding something. Des, he said, leaning back in his chair. Man, what you doing here this late? Thought you'd be home catching up with Bree after that dinner fiasco. I shut the door behind me. Figured I'd get some work done. Raheem chuckled, spinning his pen between his fingers. You? Working after hours? Now I know Bree pissed you off, but I didn't smile. Something like that. He picked up a folder, pretending to read. Look, bro, she didn't mean it like that. You know how she is. She just likes to talk slick when people are around. You gotta let that roll off. I moved closer, each step slow. You talked to her lately? That made him pause. What you mean? I mean, I said, voice steady. You two been chatting about business? Or other things? Raheem laughed a little too quick. Man, you sound paranoid. I don't talk to Bree like that. She's your wife, bro. I stopped beside his desk, eyes on the papers scattered across it. Purchase orders, invoices, project sheets. Then explain why half the new contracts are missing approval signatures, why the Riverside job's still showing a materials shortfall, even though I signed the check 2 weeks ago. He shrugged. Supply chain's been rough, you know that. Yeah, I said quietly. I also know numbers don't lie. People do, Moose. For the first time, Raheem's voice dropped low, defensive. You accusing me of something? Not yet, I said. But starting tomorrow, Evelyn's doing a full audit. Every account, every vendor, every wire transfer. He blinked. You calling the lawyer? Already did. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut. He tried to laugh again, but it came out cracked. Damn, Des. You serious? Dead serious? He stared at me, trying to measure how much I knew. The muscles in his jaw kept jumping like his body was having a conversation his mouth didn't want to join. I turned to leave, but stopped when I heard voices down the hall, the cleaning crew whispering near the supply room. I caught one line clear as day. He said the budget's short again. Raheem fixing it. Don't say nothing. They froze when they saw me. I just nodded once and kept walking. That was all the confirmation I needed. Outside, the night had cooled down, wind carrying the smell of oil and rain. I sat in my truck for a minute, letting the quiet wrap around me. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to pick up. Yeah? A voice on the other end, low and distorted. You need to see what's happening this weekend. Who is this? Doesn't matter. Just watch. You'll get the truth. More than you bargained for. The line went dead. I stared at the screen, the number already gone, erased like it never existed. The reflection of the office windows looked back at me, my company, my brother, my blood, and for the first time I realized I might be standing in enemy territory. The building where Dante lived looked like something off a real estate commercial, glass doors, fake palms in silver pots, security guard too busy scrolling his phone to care who walked in. I parked across the street, engine off, watching the glow from the third-floor corner unit where his balcony light was still on. It was past midnight. Whatever training sessions he was doing at this hour, they didn't involve barbells. I waited, watched silhouettes move across the curtains, 2 at first, then 1. When Bree finally left, she was in a hoodie, moving fast, head down like guilt had its own wind. The black SUV from before rolled up, swallowed her, and disappeared. That left Dante alone. I gave it 5 minutes, then crossed the street. The front door had a keypad, but luck, or stupidity, was on my side. A delivery guy walked out holding pizza boxes, door still swinging. I slipped in, nodding like I belonged. The hallway smelled like cologne and fresh paint. Apartment 3B, his. I knocked once. The shuffle inside paused, then came the sound of bare feet. Door cracked open just enough to show a slice of his face all clean skin and confusion. Yeah? Evening, I said quietly. We need to talk. Recognition hit him like a slap, his eyes widened. Oh, Bree's husband, right? Desmond? Close enough. He tried to pull the door shut, but I pushed it open with my palm. Relax, I'm not here to fight. He backed up, letting me in more from shock than choice. The place was a shrine to ego. Mirrors, dumbbells, designer couch nobody ever sat on. Everything smelled like protein powder and cheap success. Look, man, he started, hands raised. I know what you think, but it ain't like that. Then what's it like? I asked, shutting the door behind me. He hesitated, then dropped onto the couch, head in his hands. It just happened, okay? She came to the gym, said she needed help getting her confidence back. We started talking, vibing. One thing led to another. Always does. I didn't mean for it to go this far, he mumbled. I ain't built to ruin nobody's home. Yet here we are. He looked up, eyes glassy. It wasn't just sex, man. I cared about her. She talked about how lonely she felt, how you never listened. I laughed once, sharp and cold. You really buying her script that easy? You think you're special? You're chapter 10 in a book she's been rewriting since I met her. He winced. She said you'd say that. Of course she did. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. Let's skip the soap opera. Tell me about the business. He froze. What business? Don't play dumb. The marketing idea, the influencer partnership, the restructuring. Colour drained from his face. How do you... Because I've seen the messages, I cut in. The ones where you'll talk about the transition. You, Bree, and someone else moving money around. Who's the third name? He swallowed hard. Man, that was Raheem's idea. Said if Bree brought her followers into the company brand, they could attract investors, make it look more modern. He called it cross-branding. I sat back, letting the words hang. Cross-branding. Cute term for sabotage. I didn't know it was that deep, Dante said quickly. I thought it was just PR. Bree said she wanted security if the marriage went bad. Raheem said he could make that happen. By bleeding my contracts dry, I said. By creating fake shortages and missed payments to make me look sloppy. Dante looked lost. That ain't me, man. I swear, I don't mess with numbers. I just helped with the pitch. Pitch to who? He hesitated, chewing his lip. Some consultant guy. Darius, from Crawford & Lee Management. Raheem said he was the key. They're supposed to meet him this weekend, finalize everything. I felt my pulse tighten. Where? Dante's voice dropped. That new cafe downtown. Haven on 12th, Saturday morning. They're going to sign papers, move some assets around. That's all I know. I stood. Good. Because if you're lying, I'll know that too. He rubbed his face, shaking. You're not going to hurt her, right? Bree, she ain't. I cut him off with a look. She's already done enough damage on her own. I walked to the door. Behind me, Dante's voice cracked, small and wet. I didn't want it to go like this, man. I didn't turn around. Nobody ever does. Out in the hall, the air felt heavier. The elevator hummed somewhere above. I stepped outside into the night, letting the cool air hit my face. My phone buzzed. Raheem! Calling at 1 a.m. I stared at the screen until it stopped ringing. He could wait. Saturday was coming, and I was done waiting on anybody. The house felt colder that night, like the walls themselves knew I'd stopped pretending everything was fine. The clock in the hallway ticked too loud, echoing off the tile. Bree's perfume still hung faintly in the air. Expensive, artificial, just like the life we'd built. I turned on one lamp in the living room, spread the files across the table and waited for Evelyn. She showed up right on time, sharp smart suit, hair tied back, that no-nonsense energy she always carried into a room. You look like hell, she said by way of greeting, dropping her leather briefcase beside the couch. Appreciate the concern, I muttered, pushing a folder toward her. Here's what I pulled from the office. Invoices, transfers, whatever Raheem didn't have time to delete. Evelyn adjusted her glasses and started scanning the pages, lips pressed into a straight line. The only sound was paper flipping. After a few minutes, she sighed. Well, Des, I'll give you this. Your instincts are better than your luck. These numbers don't match. I leaned back. How bad? She pointed with her pen. Here. Same vendor billed twice. One invoice legit, one fake. Different account number on the payment. And here, payroll listed for workers who don't exist. Classic siphoning. Someone's been pulling money out under your nose for months. I let out a bitter laugh. Guess family discounts don't apply to betrayal. Evelyn shot me a look. You sure you want to joke right now? That's all I've got left, I said, rubbing my face. If I don't laugh, I start swinging. She closed the folder. You were right to call me. We'll need to run a full forensic audit, but at a glance, I'd say the losses are substantial. How substantial? She hesitated, choosing her words like glass. North of 300,000. I stared at her. You telling me my own brother stole 6 figures from me while smiling in my face? Her expression softened, but her tone didn't. Not just him. There are signatures here that match your wife's access. Transfers under her name. She wasn't a bystander, Des. She was part of it. I laughed again, but this time it sounded like it came from somewhere far away. Figures. Raheem always had the brains. Bree always had the charm. Put them together, and I guess they built the perfect con. Evelyn folded her arms. Don't do that thing where you make it sound noble. They didn't build anything. They stripped you down. I stared at the ceiling, at the slow spin of the fan. Somewhere in the back of my mind I heard my father's voice, gravel and gospel. A man's word is a bond, Des. Once it breaks, it don't mend right. I used to think that meant being honest with other people. Turns out it's about not lying to yourself. I should have seen it, I muttered. All the late nights, the excuses. I was too busy paying bills to notice I was paying for my own funeral. Evelyn gathered the papers neatly. We'll build a case, but you need to play this smart. If they think you're cornered, they'll panic and make mistakes. That's how we get proof solid enough for court. I looked at her. So what, I just act like nothing's wrong? Exactly, she said. Pretend to fold. Let them think they've broken you. People get sloppy when they think they've won. I shook my head, a half smile cutting through the exhaustion. So you want me to play the weak husband, the fool who finally gives up? Evelyn met my eyes. Not a fool, a strategist. You already know how to build something from nothing. Now it's time to rebuild yourself, just quieter. The words sank in. It was a strange kind of comfort, being told to fake surrender, like holding your breath before diving under. She packed up the folders and stood. I'll start the audit first thing in the morning. Don't confront them yet. Let this play out. When the door closed behind her, I sat alone in the glow of that single lamp, surrounded by paper proof that my life had been bought and sold. I poured myself a drink, stared into the glass, and whispered to nobody. Fine, let's play. If they wanted to believe I was done, I'd give them a performance they'd never forget. By Friday night, the house looked like a magazine spread again. Candles, white flowers, the kind of music that sounds rich even when it's free. Bree called it a fresh start dinner. I called it what it was, an execution with catering. She thought it was her idea. That was the fun part. Des, you sure about inviting everyone? She'd asked that morning, all sweet concern and subtle guilt. I mean, after everything, people might talk. Let 'em talk, I said, pouring coffee like none of it mattered. Better they see we're fine than guess we're broken. She smiled, relieved. She thought I'd folded. She thought I'd finally joined the ranks of defeated husbands who stay for appearances and silence. By 8 o'clock, the house was packed. Clients, neighbours, a few employees who couldn't say no. The air was thick with perfume and small talk, laughter just a little too loud. I moved through the room like a ghost with manners, shaking hands, nodding, smiling when people said, "Good to see you, man," like they weren't dying to know what went wrong behind the curtains. Raheem showed up late, of course. He came in wearing a fresh suit, grinning like nothing was burning. "Brother," he said, arms wide. "Didn't think you'd still want me here." "Family's family," I said. "You always got a seat at my table." He clapped me on the back, the kind of touch that feels like both affection and a dare. Bree floated over, kissed his cheek the way a sister-in-law isn't supposed to. "You made it," she said, glowing under the chandelier. "I wouldn't miss it," he said, and I believed him. After all, it was his own funeral too. Dinner went smooth enough. Bree made a speech about gratitude and growth. I raised my glass at the right moments. People ate, laughed, pretended not to feel the tension humming beneath the silverware. Meanwhile, my setup was already running. A hidden router tucked behind the piano, Bluetooth linked to the house speakers. My phone synced, my files queued, voice recordings, screenshots, bank statements. I'd built it all like one of my circuits, tight, invisible, inevitable. I kept the mask on, playing the man who'd surrendered. When someone asked about the business, I sighed. "Parish Electric's going through changes," I said softly. "Maybe I got tired. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention. Happens." Pity rippled through the table like cheap wine. Bree touched my arm. "Don't say that, babe," she said, all concerned eyes. "You've done amazing things." "Have I?" I looked at her just long enough to make her uncomfortable, then turned away. Guess everyone defines amazing different. Across the room, Evelyn stood by the bar, blending in with the crowd. She gave me the slightest nod, the signal. Everything was in place. I watched Raheem laughing with the guys from finance, flashing his gold watch like it meant something. Watched Bree posing for photos, pretending this life was still intact. Every smile, every word, every fake toast, it was all part of the countdown. The longer I played humble, the more they relaxed. By dessert, Bree was drunk on her own performance. "I'm just happy we can all move forward," she said, raising her glass. "No grudges, no regrets." Someone clapped. Someone else said, "Amen to that." I stood up slowly, the sound of my chair scraping across the floor, slicing through the chatter. The room quieted just enough to hear the faint hum of the speakers behind me. "Before we wrap up," I said, voice calm, almost gentle, "I want to say a few words." All eyes turned to me. Bree smiled nervously. Raheem froze mid-sip. Evelyn folded her arms, waiting. "I've been thinking a lot lately," I continued, pacing slightly, letting the silence breathe. "About what it means to build something, a business, a marriage, a name. You spend years wiring it, grounding it, making sure every connection's clean, and sometimes while you're busy keeping the lights on." I paused, glancing at Brue. "Someone else is cutting the wires behind your back." A nervous laugh rippled from the guests, the kind people give when they don't know if you're joking. Bree shifted in her seat. "Des," I raised a hand. No, let me finish." I reached into my pocket, thumb hovering over my phone screen. The Bluetooth icon glowed blue. The first file was ready. Raheem's smile vanished. Evelyn's gaze sharpened like a knife. "See?" I said quietly. "Truth's got a funny way of showing up to dinner uninvited." I tapped play. The speakers clicked. And just like that, the entire room went still. Fawkes mid-air, eyes wide, breath held, waiting for whatever was about to explode. The first voice that came through the speakers was Bree's, smooth, careless, sugar over poison. "You just gotta make him think it's his idea," she said, laughing softly. "Des never checks the back end. He trusts Raheem. If it looks like a business adjustment, he'll sign anything." Then Raheem's voice followed, lower, measured, the sound of a man too sure of himself. "Don't stress. Once the fund's clear, I'll shift everything over to the consultant. Des will never trace it. He's good with wires, not people." A collective murmur rolled through the room, soft at first, then louder as recognition hit. Forks clinked. Someone gasped. The laughter that filled this house for years curdled into the heavy silence of watching a life collapse in real time. Bree jumped to her feet. "Des, what the hell is this?" "Play it again," I said, calm. "Maybe you missed the harmony." Her voice cracked. "You're twisting this. You edited it." I lifted a printed transcript from the table and timestamps, message logs, bank transfers. "Then I guess I edited these too." Raheem stood, face slick with sweat. "Nah, man, this ain't what it looks like. Those calls, that was about a rebranding strategy, not money. We were planning a partnership for you." "For me?" I asked. "So generous of you all to steal my own company in my honor." A few people laughed nervously, unsure whether they were supposed to. Evelyn, leaning in the corner, said nothing, just watched, arms crossed, the calm in the middle of a tornado. Monique, Bree's best friend, looked pale. "Bree, you told me this was just marketing stuff." Bree shook her head wildly, mascara smudging under the chandelier light. "It was. He's taking it out of Next." But the next audio clip killed whatever defense she had left. Bree again, whispering this time. "Once Raheem handles the transfers, I'll walk away clean. Des won't fight. He hates attention." The words hung there like smoke. Nobody moved. You could hear the air conditioner hum, the sound of money and pride burning in silence. Raheem took a step forward, palms open. "Listen, you all know how family business gets, messy and emotional. We just—" "Stop," I said. My voice didn't rise, but it cut through everything. "Don't sell me another lie. Not here. Not in front of these people." He hesitated, then tried again. "You think ruining us in front of clients helps? You're killing your reputation right now." "Correction," I said. "You killed it. I'm just letting the light show what's already dead." The room started to shift. The neighbors whispered. Two of my biggest clients, men who'd trusted me for years, exchanged looks, set down their glasses, and quietly headed for the door. Their wives followed, muttering something about needing air. Each step they took out of that house sounded like a nail driven into a coffin labelled Parish Electric. Bree reached for me. "Des, please, can we talk privately? Don't do this here." I stepped back. "You had plenty of private. This is the invoice for all of it." Her lips trembled. "You're enjoying this." "Funny," I said. "I thought I'd feel something. Turns out it's mostly empty." She sank into a chair, head in her hands. Raheem stood by the door like a man awaiting sentencing. Monique started crying quietly. A few of the guests took out their phones, the same people who'd been laughing an hour ago now documenting the fall. Evelyn finally spoke. "All right, that's enough showtime. We've got the evidence we need." But I wasn't done yet. I looked around the room at the polished floors, the designer decor, the faces that once looked at me with respect. All of it felt like someone else's life. "See," I said, "I built this company from the ground up. Every screw, every late night, every damn paycheck I signed myself. I thought loyalty meant something, but apparently it's just a word people use before they rob you blind." Someone in the back muttered, "Damn." The crowd was thinning fast. My name, the one I'd spent 20 years building, was now a rumour leaving my own front door. And then Marcus Buck Ellison, one of the oldest clients in the room, stood up. Big man, sharp suit, voice that carried. "You made your point, Des," he said evenly. "But tell me one thing, brother. Did you lock this down legally? You saved all this in a safe place?" The question cut through the chaos like a blade. Because he was right, and if I hadn't, everything I'd just unleashed could vanish. One move, one file lost, one claim of defamation, and they'd turn the whole mess back on me. Everyone stared, waiting for my answer. Bree lifted her head, eyes red but calculating. Raheem's jaw clicked. Evelyn met my gaze, unreadable. I didn't answer. I just smiled. Slow, deliberate, the kind of smile that tells you the storm ain't over yet. Then I raised my glass and the speakers clicked again. Evelyn's office smelled like toner and peppermint, the kind of place where feelings get turned into filings. She paged through the folders I'd dragged in, pen tapping like a metronome. "You've got them," she said. "Transfers to a shadow account, duplicate invoices, forged approvals. This is chargeable." "Then charge," I said. It came out too flat to feel like a win. "We do it quiet," she replied. "Theft and fraud on Raheem. Emergency freezes on any account Bree touched. Client letters drafted today. You want justice, not fireworks. Feels the same. It isn't. Revenge is loud. Judges hate loud." I looked past her at the grey city through the blinds. In my head, porches, cookouts, my old man saying, "Keep your name clean, son." I thought I had. "How much?" I asked. "Roughly 300 grand siphoned," she said. "Maybe more. We can claw some back." "Part, not whole. Always part." She slid a form at me. "Sign to authorise filings and a forensic audit." The pen was heavier than it should have been. Ink on paper and the bridge behind me caught fire. Brother to suspect, wife to accomplice. I signed anyway. "Now you lay low," Evelyn said. "No posts, no speeches, no more stunts. If they argue you're on a vendetta, a judge can turn this into defamation and sanction you." "So even when I'm right, I gotta act humble." "Exactly." We mapped the next steps. Evidence packet to the DA, TROs on the accounts, a calm call sheet for wavering clients. She talked like a surgeon. I felt like the patient who woke up mid-op. "You okay?" she asked. "Okay adjacent." She gathered the subwas. "One more thing. Raheem's gone." My jaw clenched. "Gone where?" "Cleared his desk at dawn. Personal account emptied. Wire out to a bank across state lines. A contact thinks he's headed south. Name that keeps popping up. Crawford and Lee. Your consultant. So not just running. Recruiting." I stood staring at my reflection in her window. Older, hollowed, meaner. "If he's moving it out of state, he's laundering the trail." "Working on it," she said. "But don't chase. Let the system hold the bag." I nodded like I agreed. We both knew I didn't. In the hallway, I could still hear her voice. No noise, no rage. Paper beats volume. I stepped into the evening and the glass doors threw back a man I barely recognized. Somewhere south, my brother was threading my money through someone else's hands. I had signatures, timestamps, a lawyer who didn't blink, and a neighborhood full of witnesses who'd already picked a side. Truth might clear my name. It wouldn't bring it back. The motel room buzzed with the sound of a dying light bulb. I sat on the edge of the bed, half-dressed, papers scattered like shrapnel around me. The kind of night where silence hums louder than traffic. I'd spent the last week selling off equipment, answering client calls with fake calm, signing away the company I'd built from nothing. Parish Electric wasn't a business anymore. It was a ghost I couldn't afford to feed. On a crumpled receipt, I wrote 2 columns, what I lose and what I get back. Under losses, trust, family, name, home. Under gains, air, clarity, peace. The math didn't balance. Outside, neon bled across the wet pavement. Somewhere down the hall, someone laughed. Oh no. A sound too alive for this hour. I envied it. I thought of my father's words, said over the hood of an old Chevy, "Don't ever trust nobody but blood." Back then, that sounded like wisdom. Tonight, it felt like a curse. Blood had stolen more from me than any stranger could. I leaned back, letting the cheap headboard rattle. Maybe selling was the only clean move left. Cash out before the story finished eating me alive. Evelyn could finalise the sale next week. I'd take the payout, disappear, start over somewhere quiet. I imagined a small workshop near the coast, mornings that didn't taste like metal, people who called me Sir, but didn't know what I'd done, a blank page. But peace costs, and I was still paying. The phone buzzed on the nightstand. Monique. "Des," she said breathless, "you need to know, Bree's planning something. She's got a folder, says it's proof you abused her. Photos, texts, whatever it takes to flip the story." My pulse froze. "She's bluffing. She's not. She told Kelly she's taking it to the police tomorrow. Says she's going to make you look violent. Says you hit her." The line went silent except for the sound of her breathing. I stared at the list on the table, what I lose, what I get back, and realized another item just moved columns. "Thanks, Monique," I said quietly. "Don't call this number again." The motel light flickered once more, then died completely, leaving me in the dark with only the glow of my phone, and the new war waiting on the other end. The week moved like a storm front. Hot air, cold air, everything colliding. We argued in conference rooms, whispered in hallways, negotiated on in lobbies that smelled like lemon cleaner and bad coffee. By Thursday morning, I was in a bank tower 20 floors up, staring down at a city that kept moving, even when yours didn't. Evelyn slid a stack of documents toward me. Asset purchase agreement, bill of sale, employment guarantees. She tapped a clause. Buyer keeps your crews on for 12 months minimum. No surprise layoffs. Severance if they cut sooner. I signed where she pointed. Pen down, pen up, names, dates, initials. Each stroke was a goodbye I didn't have time to feel. Across the table, the buyers, 2 suits from a regional outfit, smiled the way sharks smile when the blood washes off. "We'll honour your active contracts," the tall one said, "as long as the books are clean." "The books are cleaner than my family," I said. He didn't laugh. Evelyn handed me another folder. Civil complaint against Raheem, already clocked in the system. Turo's on accounts he touched. Restitution demand attached. "And Bree?" I asked. "She petitioned for marital share," Evelyn said, bored like the weather. "We filed exhibits showing her authorization on transfers and her coordination with your brother. Judge flagged it. Her leverage just got small." As if summoned, Bree appeared in the hallway outside the glass. Hair perfect, eyes hard. She asked for 5 minutes. I gave her 1. "You really gonna sell our company?" she whispered. "It stopped being ours when you tried to hollow it out," I said. "You don't get equity in a robbery you planned." She blinked fast, recalibrating. "People will believe me." "Maybe," I said, "but judges read." Back inside, signatures stacked into a wall. The buyers wired the first tranche, the banker confirmed, funds received. My phone chimed, a new account blinking at me like a clean slate. Freedom didn't feel like a parade. It felt like taking off a jacket that had been raining for months and hanging it on a nail you'd never use again. We moved to the final page. "Once you sign," Evelyn said, "the transfer record's record. No backsies." "Backsies?" I snorted. "That a legal term?" "Today it is." I signed. The notary stamped. The tall buyer shook my hand like he'd purchased a story to tell at dinner. The short one asked about my crews, and for the first time all day I felt something close to warmth. "They're good people," I said. "Protect them and they'll protect your name." He nodded like he meant it. I wanted that to be enough. Evelyn walked me to the elevator with a banker's envelope under her arm. "Funds are split," she said. "A working capital for you, retainer for me, a little rainy day ice or don't touch the principal until we clear the Bree situation." "What's left to clear?" "She'll try again. Different angle. Let her. Paper beats volume." The doors slid shut. I watched my reflection blur in the steel, a man unburdened and scraped hollow at the same time. On the street, wind carried the smell of cut concrete and food trucks. I stood there, an ex-owner with a future shaped like a question mark. The phone buzzed. "Monique." I almost let it go, then I picked up. "He's calling," she whispered. "Raheem. He wants to meet. Says he needs to explain why he did it." I laughed once, no humour in it. "He ever liked truth?" "He sounded different," she said. "Scared. Said there's more. Said you don't know the real part yet." A bus roared past. My pulse kept time with the engine. "Where?" I asked. She named a place I knew too well and a time too soon. "All right," I said. "One last conversation." The line clicked off. I slipped the phone into my pocket and felt the weight of the envelope, the weight of the city, the weight of a brother's name I might never say the same way again. The parking lot behind the old warehouse smelled like rain and rust. Raheem's car waited under a busted streetlight, engine off, windows fogged. I pulled up slow, headlights cutting through the mist. He stepped out first. Same face I'd known my whole life, just older, heavier, with guilt. "Appreciate you showing," he said. Didn't come for nostalgia, I said. We stood there in the hum of insects and distant traffic. Finally, he spoke. You want to know why I did it? It wasn't the money. Not at first. Try me. He kicked a rock, hands buried in his hoodie. All my life, you were the one they noticed. Pops bragged on you. Ma said, be more like Des. You built the company. I fixed the mistakes no one saw. When clients called angry, it was me smoothing things over while you got the credit. After a while, being your shadow started to choke. I said nothing. He glanced up, eyes glossy. Then bill stacked, wife left, and Bree started talking like she understood. Said we could make it right, take what was already ours. Guess I wanted to feel like I mattered, like I could win at least once. I swallowed hard. You picked the wrong prize. Yeah, he said quietly. At the time I realized it, the trap was already set. Bree kept pushing. Logan handled the paperwork. Told myself you'd land on your feet. You always do. That's supposed to make it better? No, he said. Just truer. For a second I almost saw the kid I used to race bikes with. The one who swore we'd never turn into the men who raised us. I hated that I still cared. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a flash drive. Evidence, emails, contracts, timestamps. Clears you completely. Nails the consultant and Bree. I'll hand it over if you promise to keep my family out of it. My kids don't deserve this fallout. I took the drive but didn't promise. You asking for mercy after burning down the house? He nodded. Yeah, 'cause you're still my brother. The wind picked up, whipping leaves across the pavement. Neither of us moved. The past hung between us, heavy and unfixable. Then my phone rang, unknown number. I answered. A man's voice, crisp, official. Mr. Parrish, this is Detective Alvarez. We need you at the station. There are new statements in your case. They change everything. Raheem's eyes widened. What now? I stared into the dark, the flash drive warm in my hand. I don't know, I said, but it sounds like truth just got expensive again. 6 months later, the mountains taught me a quieter kind of electricity. Mornings here start blue and cold, then warm to pine and sun, and by noon the whole town smells like sawdust and coffee. I rent a narrow shop off Main. 2 bays, a pegboard wall, a dented kettle on a hot plate. Heart wiring and repair. No neon, no slogans. Folks walk in with space heaters, porch lights, a busted breaker from a cabin that only remembers it's old when the first snow hits. I fix what's in front of me. Then I lock up and go breathe. I kept the crew clauses in the sale. Most of my people landed on their feet. A few called the first week just to hear my voice. Then the calls thinned, which is how healing sounds if you listen far enough away. The legal mess unknotted, not clean but final. Paperwork like a long exhale. Some clients back home decided I was reckless. Some decided I was righteous. People don't pick truth. They pick a story that makes them sleep. I can live with that. Nights, I write lists again. Smaller ones, what I owe, what I refuse, what I'll carry. I lost a house shaped like pretense, a business I loved past healthy, a brother who mistook hunger for purpose. I kept my hands, my name in a new town, and a way of walking that doesn't ask permission. Turns out freedom doesn't cheer, it nods. On Sundays I drive out where the road pulls tight along the ridge and park by a turnout. I think about the shop my father ran from our driveway, how he'd show me the inside of a fuse, call it a promise you could hold. Never lose your name, he said. I thought I had, but maybe names molt. Maybe you let the old skin go so the new one can fit. The phone buzzes while I'm chalking a ladder rack. Monique. We haven't talked since the city, since she decided being useful was safer than being loyal to a lie. Des, she says, soft. Quick one. Bree got married, Phoenix Sky. She's telling folks you pushed her there. Emotionally, I mean. Says she had to save herself. Snowmelt drips from the eaves, steady as a metronome. People buying it? Depends who needs the story, she says. Just thought you should hear it from me. Thanks, Mo. You good? I'm living, I say. It's not poetry, but it's the truest thing I own. I hang up and keep working. A tourist couple wanders in asking if I install porch lights, with a warm vibe. I tell them warmth is about bulbs and placement, and how you enter a room. They laugh, then listen. I measure twice. I don't rush. Here's what I know now. Truth ain't a trophy. It's a key. It doesn't make people clap. It opens a door and waits. You still gotta walk through. I close the shop early and drive to the ridge. The town shrinks behind me into little squares of light. Wind leans on the truck like an old friend. I think about everything that was taken and everything I handed over myself. I think about second chances that are really first ones. You just didn't know your name yet. If you want more, stay with me. Because somewhere between silence and thunder, a man learns what he's made of. And tell me, for a rule, what would you have done in my place?